I see the video is live. Let me check if I did the list. Forgot something else. Yes. Alright. So just my live stream in kata. Today my practice of going live. Starting with speaking in color. I'll simply go in the next in the list, which is a shift of state by simply by changing a color. We already changing a state. So this video is in my self-hypnosis playlist, and I'll be talking a bit about hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and as James Tripp has mentioned, hypnosis can be seen as simply shifting state, and by the way, this throws an interesting um, крученый, interesting ball. I wonder how should I translate this? It throws a conundrum towards the non-state theory. So something I think everyone who is interested in hypnosis should be aware of is that there is a state versus non-state. And basically that the state approach is that hypnosis is something special, and non-state approach is that hypnosis is simply a particular use of something that happens even if we do not use. Actually, no. This is all about labels. Because there are different ways to frame this, but most of them are leaky. So leaky abstractions. So what I want to mention is cognitive bias and leaky abstractions today, because I will be bouncing, and bouncing is a technique. So there is this song by Eminem, like about burning. Let me find it. Maybe I can find it. Just to clarify the meaning. And Yandex doesn't have search here. I hope that they, for some reason, I hope that they fixed this, but in mobile version they have search, but not for some reason in the web one. I mean search in my tracks, not in not global search. Beautiful pain, it's called. So Eminem, beautiful. Yeah, it's very useful song. And by the way, I often use songs for self-hypnosis. So this song, it captures a particular metaphor, a particular transition, uh, idea, concept, and simply by putting it on repeat, I can achieve some of my goals, some of my self-hypnosis goals. By the way, the Tools of Titans book, and I borrowed this from here, from this book. Uh, the practice of putting songs on repeat. Tools of Titans by Timothy Ferris mentions that some successful people would use this practice of some titans would use this practice of putting a song on repeat. Why is this good? Again, this is about states. So we began this stream with a mention of states. So when you uh, put a song on repeat, you are maintaining a certain state. Uh, and when I start like a playlist or a radio and songs are changing, uh, I don't know, maybe it might be different for different people, but I find that it works kind of like a scramble, like noise. So I find so there is this brain fog. It's a thing. And I actually feel a kind of a brain fog. I mean, compared to how I normally function, how my mind normally functions, when I start a playlist, I feel like this degrade in my ability, in my capability to think, because it's just it throws this noise at me, right? And when I want to scramble myself, I sometimes use this intentionally. It's another form of self-hypnosis. I can put radio. Well, I can use the radio if I want to find something new, some new states, new emotions. But also if I want a bit of a scramble, and I can um, shuffle through my playlists. If I want a different kind of scramble, but from states that I know are mostly good. So, um, so sound is a very powerful thing. There is sound therapy, for example, and um, we can work on some problems like in adjunct therapy way by picking the right sounds and the right songs who transfer a particular metaphor. Uh, so this beautiful pain, it has this metaphor of of, well, I will not spell it. I'll just mention that it uses this term silence. The feeling of resilience is building. And resilience is kind of weak, but Taleb mentions how in English we don't have a popular term for what he calls anti-fragile, popular term for phases of a stronger reaction. So resilience is simply being able to roll with the punches, right? Roll with the punches. And I will wait this red bar to go away. There was a packet loss. So resilience is not seeing enough video. Well, maybe it's an old. Here, let's see. Resilience is simply being able to roll with the punches. But instead of simply rolling with the punches, there is a next level, so to speak, like an Aikido, when you use this energy uh, when this energy actually helps you. Uh, when you achieve more, so somebody strikes you, and you achieve more with the strike than if there wasn't a strike. So it's also one of my early videos on self-hypnosis is about psychic vampirism. It's a similar concept that if somebody sends some negative emotions your way and you can perceive these emotions through your empathy, mentalization, or whatever the way we perceive these emotions is a certain kind of energy. So we can definitely say that these emotions make our neurons fire, right? So there is a transfer of energy here, and we can. So some people might prefer to see even more to it than simply neurons. But now that we have this energy, it is a matter of our skill on how we use it. So we have some defaults. Defaults, we get a negative emotion, we reproduce it in ourselves, we feel bad, and negative emotions by default, the evolution might have been designed them to make us go away. So there are things we want to go away from, negative emotions, and positive emotions, things we want to go away to, things we want to approach. Defensive and appetitive, defensive and appetitive. Um, so this is a default, but we can change it. We can change this default. By the way, there is an article that even old people, I can find it maybe, but I won't bother. That even the old people can drastically rewire their brain through neuroplasticity can drastically rewire the brain in just in a day. And scientists were very surprised when they found this, like experimentally. But neuroplasticity remains. It's not just a trait of the young, just a matter of having a goal to do this, and uh, then a matter of approaching it with some kind of practice, and you can rewire your brain. And by the way, this article, interestingly, it shows that there is a difference between simply getting some input and trying to change. They saw this uh, drastic and unexpected neuroplasticity only in the second case where people tried to change, had a goal to change. Uh, so resilience is it's a good song. It's a good song for this kind of psychic vampirism or aikido, for accepting the changes and using them and going through transitions. I like this song a lot, but resilience is weak, and the term I coined instead of resilience is bouncing like a ball. So the ball, I like this term bounce because some balls, and I have this ball here, uh, it can bounce. It flies back stronger than it flew in for some reason. You see, it's jumped right through to the roof. Like I started it here and it jumped to the roof. That's what I call bouncing. Uh, and Jesus, for example, he has this notion with Marfa. Jesus, Marfa. Марфа, печешься о многом, Одина есть на потребу, Мария же благую часть избра, еже не отымется от меня. Marfa, Marfa, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better. So you can see that Jesus reacts. He see some opportunity in what Martha does. Martha is distracted by the preparations and bothers people, and he sees an opportunity in this to teach. So he's bouncing off of her activity. He doesn't simply ignore it. Oh, okay. I'm stoically perfect like a stone. No, he bounces, right? Mm. So this might be useful to bounce from things I see. Uh, and one of such things is an Reddit article, Reddit, and another thing is a book about emotions. Let me see if I can find it. A book about emotions. So I might bounce off this. So to sleep on it. We have this saying, I want to sleep on it. And it just occurred to me like half an hour ago that this is seldom articulated, under-articulated, why this works. Uh, like maybe there is some value in naming this technique and explaining it. Uh, so to sleep on it is changing the state. So you have a problem or a task, and when you see this task, you kind of approach it in one way, but it might be not an optimal way. Kind of preset into approaching it in a certain way. Uh, and if you want different kind of opinions, different perspectives on how to approach it, it might be reach, hard to reach such alternative perspectives because they're simply not readily available. So why not? Why not? So one of the reasons it's interesting that uh, in the brain, uh, one Medical Express article have mentioned it, so maybe I can find it if need as well. But it's certainly an interesting metaphor. Uh, in the brain, neurons always sleep. So it's kind of like they're working in shifts. Some neurons always asleep and another are always awake. And then those which were awake are getting asleep, and those which were asleep are getting awake, and they uh, a neural network can function 24 hours, uh, but using different neurons. Because some neurons are turning off all the time, and other neurons are all the time waking up. So the neural network always changes. It's interesting. And when we go to sleep, like it's one thing to go to sleep and forget about the problem, right? Maybe it's useful as well, but it's one thing. Another thing is that when we go asleep, but a certain part of us still remembers about the problem or the task and still kind of thinks about it. Maybe this is happening in the background, like uh, uh, attention might move elsewhere, but some part of our mind still thinks about the problem outside of the attention. So uh, attention guides memory recording. So things that are happening outside of attention, they are not recorded in memory, but they are still happening. We do not see them, but they are still happening. So we can move in attention and see, oh, there is something happens. But if we didn't move the attention, there might still be background processes running uh, with no one the wiser. But actually, the memory is distributed as well, so we can sometimes access different memories by shifting state, and this is another reason why shifting state help. Uh, so one way to explain why to sleep when it helps is uh, that sleep promotes certain neurons going to sleep, and maybe some reserve nerves are waking up. And we have this, maybe some neurons prefer to work when we sleep, like a backup shift. Uh, and suddenly we have a very different network, a very different mind working on a problem. Uh, but such shifts of state can happen not only with sleep, but simply listening to different music, looking at a different picture, because we have one third of our brain, if I remember correctly, dedicated to visual subsystem. So simply looking at a different picture can shift the state. Uh, and a lot of our memory is spatial and visual, and it is also an energy that we can reuse in our thinking. Uh, and yeah, I have even note here. I was going to mention the power naps. So we know that some uh, people who are classified as geniuses, and of course, I found this article yesterday about uh, cloud calendars. Let's find bicycles together. So this is a bicycle. This is a bicycle. This is a bike. Uh, and the thing about cloud calendars, you never know you're actually a genius, and a lot of geniuses are in calendar. Unconventional thinking, right? Right. There is also Wonkas, right? So the Wonkas are kind of more practical geniuses, or but both can be geniuses. Uh, so a lot of geniuses were actually calendars, calendars. In which way? In that they experimented with their sleep. They weren't normal people you see around. They uh, tried to optimize the processes and tried to optimize the sleep. And that puts them firmly in the calendar land. Uh, cloud calendar. So how does this work, this cloud calendar practice of power naps? It works by a rapid shift of states. So instead of going through 8 hours uh, and forgetting about what you were thinking about something, but after 8 hours you already in a very different place. Instead of this, you sleep simply from 5 to 25, optimal 30. So power nap lasts somewhere from 5 to 30 minutes. And you can actually rest in just the 5 minutes if you know how to uh, move your mind and your brain through the states. You can rest in 5 minutes. It wouldn't be a full 8 hours rest. It will last you like 5 minutes rest can last you maybe 3 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, but it will drastically change your energy levels. But it will also move you through these shifts of states, using different teams of neurons, different shifts of neurons, right? Uh, so a lot of insight happens uh, simply by using a power nap while in a certain context, in the context of a task or a problem. So you can say that power naps is hypnosis. Hypnosis is shifting state, and power naps are hypnosis, and they are hypnotically effective. It's not very different from a hypnotist telling you that, hello, close your eyes, feel good, and imagine that your loved ones are helping you. Uh, so how does this compare to Yapka? Here I'm quoting Miho Yapka, beautiful hypnotherapist, like hero, hero of hypnotherapy. Uh, the most underrated hero of hypnotherapy because uh, the way I read about it, he pioneered the use of hypnosis in depression. Nobody was brave enough to use hypnosis in such clinical conditions before him. Uh, and he says that it's not so that hypnosis in and of itself cures nothing. And for a long time, I was subscribing to this view, and I even quote Yapka here. Just a few days ago, I was quoting him. But actually, yeah, hypnosis in and of itself cures, 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 cures. It cures. So Yapka isn't 100% correct. And it cures through these shifts of state, and also through intentional shifts of states. So we can remember different definition of hypnosis as uh, meaningful goal-directed striving. Somehow I like this. It seems vague, but somehow I always return to this definition. Hypnotic behavior is meaningful goal-directed striving. So if you have a goal, uh, and then you use hypnosis, this change of state, then already it works. It works very well already. Like John Baker, the French hypnotherapist, said that in hypnosis, basically what we're doing is we're helping the brain make connections. Uh, and already by having a goal and going through changes of state in the context of that goal, we are already helping the brain to make these new connections. So, on one hand, Yapka is correct that it's new understanding, new ideas, new ways of responding, and new internal associations that are formed during hypnosis that have therapeutic potential. Yeah, but these new connections they happen automatically because we have this shifts of state. Um, hmm. But somehow this makes me wonder. This makes me wonder because this is such a strange and uh, such uh, such a common and such a strange thing. So it is baffling to me. It is baffling, but it is also very common. Uh, we think here. So a person learned hypnosis and used it to disable his emotions, to get an emotional flatline. To get an emotional, the audio stream current bitrate is zero. It's weird. Which might be a bad idea according to Linde, uh, because Linde has a sound theory. Hmm. I have yeah. Linde. Bit of notes right here, but I'm not sure if Linde will be there. Mhm. So Linda have a sound theory, and it's not a complete theory because I think that well, schizophrenia is like Jews. It's profanity. Schizophrenia is a profane word. It's like uh, like nigger, Kant, and Jews. It's it's a term that surpasses medical or psychological use. But one way to put a leaky abstraction on top of it is that schizophrenia is organical damage to the brain, and often people misdiagnose. No, by my definition, misdiagnosed schizophrenia by uh, mistaking conditions that lead to organic damage with the organic damage itself. Right? So there is a lot of things that can lead to organic damage, inflammation, through autoimmunity, through some such unknown shit. We do not know why the myelin tissue starts deteriorating in some psychological conditions, but um, so we know that some conditions likely lead to organic damage to the brain, and this organic damage is usually when we have reason to diagnose schizophrenia. But we should, I think, differentiate between things leading to schizophrenia potentially, and well, it's the matter of overdiagnosis in psychiatry is maybe I shouldn't even go there. But Linda basically has this idea that by reaching this emotional flat line, a person creates uh, a condition that is that leads to schizophrenia, to organic damage to schizophrenia. So people, some hypnotherapists like to say that hypnosis is like harmless, but here we see. Again, like in the non-state theory, everything that can happen in hypnosis can happen without hypnosis. So a lot of people who found their way to schizophrenia on their own without hypnosis, they can perfectly do this. But in this case, a person found his way to a condition that potentially leads to schizophrenia with the help of hypnosis. Hypnosis helped him a lot in this noble endeavor. Because he used hypnosis simply to achieve this emotional flatline, to put a brake on emotion, which leads to schizophrenia. It's basically a basic. It's a revolution. If we draw a social analogy to what is happening, why the emotional flatline leads to schizophrenia, it's like suppressing a majority of population. We have a huge emotional networks in our brain, and Panksepp in affective neuroscience, he puts a map, draws a map of these emotional affective networks. And the quotes I've seen recently uh, were related to this somewhat. They are not medical, but it's Chesterton. emotion, the irreducible minimum, the indestructible germ. I wonder if emotion is here. No, not here. So Chesterton argues that emotion is the core, and Damasi also have shown that you can't go on without emotions. And of course, Panksiep shows that a lot of brain is dedicated to emotions. And we, for some reason, we want a flat line. We want to oppress these emotional subsystems, and it leads to kind of unrest often. It leads to chronic conflict, and this is why organic damage might be happening, because chronic conflict leads to stress, to inflammation, uh, but it might also lead to open unrest and uprising if you draw this social analogy. Uh, so here we see a person who uses hypnosis to do this very stupid thing, to disable his emotions for long. I understand that you might disable emotions like for 10 minutes, for half an hour, in order to think better on through some crisis, but he disabled them for 9 years, I think. 9 to 10 years. What the fuck? So he disabled emotions and went away. La la la, I'm happy now. I have no emotions. I mean, maybe it's all right if a person has no emotions in the first place. Maybe his networks are like naturally passive and underdeveloped. But he clearly has very strong emotions. These subsystems, they were very active, and he uh, it's clear that there will be conflict. Uh, I mean, it's very likely. So maybe this is what Yapko means with this, a part of what he means with this quote, that it's dangerous to use hypnosis like a blunt tool. Like, I just want to cure my emotional problem by lobotomizing my emotions. I will use hypnosis. Maybe this is what Yapka means by saying that hypnosis in itself doesn't cure. Uh, so I guess where this is, where we are arrived, is that uh, in problem-driven iterative adaptation, they would call it an imported solution. So for example, we have a country like Africa and another country like Germany. So in Germany, there is a huge office, like an entire building that might be dedicated to design some reform in Africa, some developmental activity, some humanitarian effort. Uh, but they are just office workers who sit there in Germany in their building, and they know nothing about Africa. They read some texts, no more than that. And there are Africa with people on site. But these people on site, they have sometimes next to zero influence on the plans made in Germany. So we have this waterfall, like top-down approach, where uh, organization in Germany builds plans for some humanitarian activity, and then they are implemented in Africa, and they fail most of the time. They simply fail. And that's in problem driving adaptation. It's called an imported solution. And imported solution most of the time for complex problems they do not work. And this is a kind of illusion we have in our society right now in modern times that everything is solved. It's kind of a postmodernistic illusion. Everything is solved. Everything. We just need to find a solution. There is such a huge. We have million of people in on the globe, and a lot of them are going to universities and becoming smart people. Surely these smart people already, how many years this was going on? They already solved all these problems. We just need to find the solution, apply it, and everything will be fine. But this isn't, it doesn't work that way. Imported solutions fail. And here, in development, this is also known as an XY problem. So a guy wants to solve a problem, but he has a solution. Uh, yeah. So he wants to solve a problem X, and immediately he thinks of a solution Y, and he then goes out to people and asks them, "Help me with Y." So his focus shifts immediately from the actual problem to something he's trying to do, but uh, he didn't stop to think that maybe Y isn't the right solution, that there may be other solutions much better than that. And he might waste a lot of time and effort uh, finding a solution to Y, but never fixing X. So maybe it is a case of an imported solution or XY problem that he just immediately thought that I have these problems with emotions, so I can so I need to disable them with hypnosis. Uh, so what we're coming to is that basically if we do this shift of state, so we have a goal in the shift of state. These are already helpful and already helpful in hypnosis and self-hypnosis. Uh, but it pays to be open. to the different solutions that can emerge from unconsciousness. Like Carl Jung said that a lot of our insights, a lot of okay, let me find it about geniuses. Uh, how was it? Kukuland. Kukulenders. Let me find it about the Kukulenders. Aka geniuses. Uh, where would I find it about the Kukulenders? I get it. It's Kukulenders. Kukulenders. Lot of Jung here, but not what I need. So I was I did find this quote recently. Um, I find it in Kindle. It's Man and His Symbols, and many artists, philosophers, and even scientists owe some of the best ideas to inspirations that appear suddenly from the unconsciousness, from unconscious, from unconscious. Ability to reach a rich vein of such material and to translate it efficiently into philosophy, literature, music, or scientific discovery is one of the hallmarks of what is commonly called genius. Uh, so, in order for hypnosis to help, we might want to remain open to these solutions that are sprouting from the unconsciousness, from unconscious. Not jump into X, Y, into I need this. I I need to just turn my emotions on off. Just give me the pill. But focus on the goal. On the goal. I feel bad. I want to feel better. This might be the goal. Not turn your emotions off. It's conceptually it's about the difference between direction. So it is different approaches to life in general. To life in general. One approach is to go into a certain direction, allowing oneself a flexibility. So, uh, like I want to visit uh, southern United States and reach Canada maybe. But I can go to this city or this city or this city, and I don't need to know precisely which one. So I might have booked some hotel, but it's no problem if I appear in another city. I can rewire my road. It's an open approach. We move in a certain direction, but we can be flexible on the way. It's James Tripp compares this to a sail. Uh, sail, sorry, sail, which this flexibility allows the sail to go forward under different wind. He might do some uh, cuckoo, cloud calendar. He might go through some cloud calendar trajectories, but is going in a certain directions, in a certain direction. And another approach is that I want to go there, into this particular dot on the map, to this particular coordinate. And when expressed this way, I don't know, maybe it might seem obvious that you might need some flexibility, but it might seem obvious because it's the purpose of the analogy, the purpose of the metaphor is to make this obvious. But when people apply it to other things, this they often go with imported solutions. They often jump into Y's, into Y's, into XY problem. Uh, hmm. So this book about emotions, book about emotions. Actually, if you go to this site, hmm, no, to maybe this, yeah, duality profile. This book of emotions comes with a test. So what is the problem with this? The problem is that the sale example, sale, like asking for. So the sale example shows us the advantage of flexibility when we can go straight if the wind is good, or we can go uh, kind of a ladder. We can maybe just make a different figure. We can maybe even hide from the wind besides some land. Or maybe there is a way to go through a channel somewhere. So we can move in different, so we have some general direction. We want to go in this direction. But in order to get there, we might actually use some different directions and different behaviors. But this side here, this test here, and a lot of tests in general suggests that a person has a one-track mind. One-track mind suggests that that there is a particular behavior that a person always uses, or a particular set of behaviors. So it's like figures on a chessboard. This test suggests that a person is always a tower, always, I forgot how chessboard figures are called in English. Where is my Wikipedia? So it suggests that one person is always a rook, another is always a bishop, and another is always a pawn, and another is always a knight. But this is simply false. These suggestions. I don't know if the author, and of course we often want to simplify. And this, why do we go to the inverted solution? Why do we go to x, y? It's for noble causes, for noble reasons. We want to simplify. A camel's razor. Why do we need to think about all those other behaviors if we can simply go through this system that uses just three emotions? And explain everything through these three emotions. Why do we need to complicate stuff? It's a noble cause of simplification, but I don't know if the author maybe they would say that it is simply stupid to use a test that way, and we didn't mean that way. I don't know, or maybe they are honestly thinking that every person is of a certain type, which is simply false. People, they might have some default behaviors they fall onto. But if you look in attachment in Edel's theory, for example, they note that these defaults actually are different in different environments. They are often different in different environments. So in one environment, with one network, with one set of people, person might fall on one default, fall back on one default. With another person might fall back on a different default. We have different models of behavioral. We have a behavioral repertoire. behavioral repertoire. And taking such tests, such test and learning that I am the hero, for example, it suggests that my repertoire is limited to being a hero, which is a less than useful suggestion. Actually, a person can change the way they engage with life. Can change, and Cialdini in Persuasion shows how easy it is to change. This identity, this type, is simply a trick of memory, and by tricking a person into using a different set of memories, we see his type change. It changes. His identity changes. His way of engagement with the world changes simply by changing what he remembers, using a positive test strategy, for example. So, if we go through this suggestion of simply being a hero, it means we can move only in one particular fashion, and we lose this flexibility, which might be useful simplification for some. Maybe a person just wants to disable his emotions and go for 10 years without a change of direction towards schizophrenia. It might be useful to be that simple, but it also has downsides. If you do not train our brain to be more flexible, if you do not challenge it to grow, then it begins to deteriorate much sooner. So it's actually might have some local benefits to be that simple and to use such simplifications. So this theory, it's very elegant, but it's full of leaky abstractions. And I think the goal of it is to simplify. And in a particular moment in therapy, this simplification might help, particularly if we speak with a person who uh, who cannot bear the complexity. You might seduce them with this elegant and it's like it reminds me of Chesterton, who talked of small infinity. He talked about insane, clinically insane, and he says that an insane person is often logical. It's just his logic is small. Perhaps you know that you are the king of England, but why do you care? Make one magnificent effort and you will be a human being and look down on all the kings of earth. So you are greater than England, but what a small world it must be. Is there really no life fuller and no love more marvelous than yours? How much happier you would be. So yeah, it's a good place in this book, good piece in this book. So here it is. If you attempt to trace the year of a madman, it isn't easy. So we can argue, and he can argue back, and it's actually his madness is logical. And the nearest we can get to expressing that his mind moves in a perfect but narrow circle. A small circle is quite as infinite as a large circle. But even though it's quite as infinite, it's not so large. In the same way, the insane explanation is quite as complete as the sane one, but it is not so large. A bullet is quite as round as the world, but it is not the world. There is such a thing as a narrow universality, as a small and cramped eternity. So we see in this model of emotions that it's all neatly tucked in. It's all made into a perfect ball, a perfect small ball. And it might be useful therapeutically if we have this person who exists in this small, crumpled, cramped infinity, cramped eternity. This might appeal to them to use this small understanding of emotions, simplified understanding. Uh, so it might be of use, but in the long, it reminds me of Bern, who to his therapy there was like two layers. So a person might have a scenario, and one layer is changing them from using a bad scenario to a good scenario. From frogs to princess. Princess. But a second layer would be to be free of scenario, to be free from any such small infinity. So this might be helpful as a temporary solution, but then a person, I'd argue, have to develop into embracing a wider range of emotions and a wider range of behaviors and types and archetypes, because this makes the gray, like Poirot like to say, great cells. This feeds the great, energizes the great cells and helps them grow. And this leads to a longer and more fulfilling life when we expand our behavioral repertoire. Uh, and about these profiles, they are also useful as a kind of default. And I had this analogy of a gamma, musical gamma. So they are helpful as gammas. We can study them as gammas. And a person who is a hero, and just a hero, is a person who goes through their life playing a single gamma, always. A person who goes through their life always eating carrots. This is why I mentioned carrots here. It's like a person who always eats carrots. And then maybe he will change to someone to echo, and he will be always eating echos. But we do not want to go, and it isn't healthy going through life uh, eating always carrots or always melons. We need diversity. Uh, there was recently uh, a video on this. Yes, probably, yeah. Mm. Yeah, Tim Spector talked on the diet, and there's a lot of similarity here, because most diets tell you do this or do that, eat this stuff, and Tim Spector experimented with this for so long, for dozens of years, and he came to a conclusion that they are kind of all wrong. Because what you want is you also want the diversity. You want individual approach. So these diets, they are like imported solutions. And Tim Spector came to conclusion independently that in diet we want to uh, narrow down on what works for this particular person instead of trying to import a solution. Uh, and we want diversity. Uh, so in these types, we also a person who is simply an echo is a person who always eats carrots or always goes through the same gamma. We want a person to learn different gammas and then to start writing their own music.